So good, so good, so good.
Ready to rack to school and save big? Get to your Nordstrom Rack store today for thousands of deals from just $20.
Because I want to look fresh.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
I got a new backpack.
Score everyone's favorite denim, sneakers, boots, and activewear from Nike, Levi's, Steve Madden, Madewell, and Free People. Great brands, great prices. Everyone's got a reason to rack. Shop Nordstrom Rack and make it the best school year ever.
This Friday, Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan are back to switch things up in Disney's Freakier Friday.
Totally, yes.
It's an absolute riot,
Woo!
and the only movie that can be described as
So much weirder than the last time. What last time?
it's the frequel
You ready?
we've been waiting for.
That absolutely slays.
What deeply out-of-touch old person came up with that?
You did.
Wow.
Don't miss the comedy event of the summer for all ages. Disney's Freakier Friday in theaters this Friday. Get tickets now. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested.
This episode is brought to you by the world's first reposado from Tequila Herradura. Made with slow-cooked, hand-harvested agave sealed into oak barrels and aged 11 months. Before being enjoyed in your glass. Experience the world's first reposado. Tequila Herradura. Please drink responsibly. Responsibility.org. Tequila Herradura. 40% alcohol by volume. Imported by Brown-Forman, Louisville, Kentucky. Herradura is a registered trademark. Copyright 2025 Brown-Forman Corporation.
Pie in the Sky Media. This series contains adult language and descriptions of graphic violence throughout. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Criminal Mischief with Carolyn and Brandon. You're listening to episode 95, Taken. 12-year-old Ashley Pond was hurriedly getting dressed. She's overslept again. It's the morning of January 9th, 2002. Ashley had a habit of finding herself running out the door, quickly saying goodbye to her mother and little sister as she dashed out of their apartment. Ashley's family consisted of her mom and her little sister. They lived together at the Newell Creek Apartments, a sprawling 125-unit complex surrounded by woods in Oregon City, Oregon, about 15 miles away from Portland. Usually there were a lot of kids walking to the bus stop at the same time, but not that morning. It was after 8 a.m., and bus pickup was at 8:10 sharp. So Ashley found herself running up the hill alone. It was usually a 10-minute walk, but if she hurried, maybe, just maybe, she'd make it. She had to make it because she was so excited for her dance practice after school with her friends. It was 6:15 that evening, and Ashley's mom still hadn't heard from her daughter. So Lori calls the school, and she's shocked to find out that Ashley hadn't been to dance practice and she'd been marked absent from school. Lori immediately calls the police to report her daughter missing. When Ashley's mother was speaking to the police, she was adamant that her daughter would not run away. And to prove it, she showed them that all of her belongings were at home. But police weren't convinced.
But once these kids get to be 12, 13, 14, 15 years of age, then the possibility of them running away and so on becomes there. And you can't just go by the fact when the mother says, my daughter would never run away. I can't tell you how many cases I've heard that in. It turned out the daughter did run away or the son did run away. So you have to listen to that and consider it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
That's retired FBI agent Ken Lanning, who had a long career in the behavioral science unit. Ken wasn't a part of this investigation, but throughout this episode, he will share his insights into the case based on his vast experience as a profiler.
That brings us to another thing that people don't understand, and that is we've started in this country in the last 20 years to use the words abducted and missing interchangeably, and as if they're the same thing. And what people don't understand, and even when you tell them this, they scratch their heads and can't figure it out. Most missing children are not abducted. And even more shocking, most abducted children aren't missing. And when you say to people, well, how could that be? Sometimes you get a few people who will guess why most missing children aren't abducted. And the reason why is most missing children are runaways, throwaways, lost kids, injured kids, and all those kinds of things. So there's all kinds of categories of kids who are missing who haven't been abducted by anybody. Some of them were abducted by a parent. But when you say to people that most abducted children aren't missing, they say that's impossible. I mean, if a kid's abducted, why would the child not be missing? And what they don't understand is they don't precisely define their terms. And what it means is you're not missing until your whereabouts are unknown and someone has taken note that your whereabouts are unknown.
It isn't clear why the apartment complex where Ashley lived wasn't searched the night her mother reported her missing, or why a detective wouldn't be assigned to the case until the next day. Ashley was only 12 years old, and statistically, when it comes to missing children, the first 24 to 48 hours are the most critical. The chances of getting back an abducted child dramatically decreases after that. Canvassing the 125-unit complex would be a daunting task, especially when everyone they talked to said they hadn't heard any screams or witnessed any kind of a struggle, and no personal items of Ashley's were found in the area.
Was a crime committed, or did they decide they just didn't want to go to school and they ran away and they're off having a good time someplace? And so you just don't know. Now at 12, they were on the young side of that, and I still thought they should have given a lot of attention to the possibility, and I'm sure that they did, the possibility that the girls were abducted.
9 days after Ashley went missing, the detective assigned to the case reaches out to the FBI for assistance. The local police department needed help, evaluating friends, family, and acquaintances. Since Ashley seemingly vanished without a trace on her way to the bus stop, the working theory was that she'd willingly gone with someone she knew. Statistically, that was more likely, as stranger abductions are extremely rare. Family members, friends, residents of the complex, teachers, anyone and everyone with information was interviewed, which meant a lot of time was spent coordinating alibis for the morning that Ashley went missing from everyone in her life that was deemed a person of interest.
Very often they'll say, well, check all the registered sex offenders in the area. Well, all the sex offenders in the area. Apparently, I read something where it indicated that in the apartment complex where there was something like 25 suspects that they couldn't eliminate.
An appeal to the public was made for information. Without a crime scene or physical evidence, there wasn't a lot to go on. Mostly investigators were focusing on building a victimology, basically a profile on Ashley, her routines, the people in her life, and that's where Ashley's history of waking up late came into play. Sometimes she'd miss the bus, and on occasion she'd stop off at her friend Mallory's house, who lived next door to the bus stop, because Mallory's dad, Ward Weaver, would give her a ride to school because he left for work at around the same time. 12-year-old Mallory lived with her dad, Ward, and her older brother, Francis. And so on January 18th, detectives went to speak to Ward Weaver at his house. They wanted to know about the day Ashley went missing. They knew that she was running late that morning, and they asked, had she stopped by? Ward Weaver would say that he'd been home late that morning because he'd been having issues with his home alarm system, but that he never saw Ashley. She never came by. Investigators ask if they could do a search on his home, and he agrees. When they didn't see anything suspicious, they left. Another seemingly dead end. On January 23rd, the FBI and Oregon City Police would set up roadblocks near the bus stop. They hand out missing persons flyers, asking for tips. Did anyone know anything about the disappearance of Ashley Pond? A K2 reporter was there that morning at the bus stop, where she would speak with Miranda Gaddis, who was one of Ashley's friends.
It's really hard to believe that happened to one of your friends or something. It's just really different and really sad.
Following the roadblock, police would receive hundreds of tips, but nothing would lead them to a suspect. But they would find out more about Ward Weaver. That in the summer of 2001, Ashley had stayed at the Weavers. Remember, she was really good friends with his daughter, who was a classmate of Ashley's, and they were both on the same dance team together. If you'll recall, the Weavers' home was at the top of the long driveway that led to the apartment complex, and it was right in front of the bus stop. When they looked into Weaver's criminal history, they discovered that he was a felon with a history of sexual violence against girls and young women. That in 1981, a teenage relative would allege that Weaver had repeatedly raped and beat her. Apparently, charges were never filed, because Weaver had enlisted in the Army and left town. In 1986, Weaver attacked a 15-year-old girl with a block of concrete and would be sentenced to 3 years in prison. And his ex-wives would also accuse him of abuse.
That's the sad part about Ward Weaver. Ward Weaver should have been locked up for a long time, a lot sooner than he was locked up. It was really pathetic that he had to commit so many crimes, and particularly the kind of crimes that he did commit, before he really went to jail for a significant time. Now, apparently he was locked up for about 3 years for some rape of some family member or somebody. I don't remember the details of it. But so sometimes he got caught, and one time sometimes these people are lucky. So one time he agrees to go into the military. So they decide, well, he's going to be gone. We don't have to deal with him, commonly referred to as pass the trash. So off he goes.
Apparently, in the fall of 2001, Ashley would confide to a teacher that Ward Weaver had molested her, and that's why she stopped staying at her friend's house during the summer. This teacher would report Ashley's allegations about Ward Weaver to police. Here's Ashley's former teacher, Lynn Verdon, speaking to reporters.
Ward didn't rape me. He tried to rape me. I know the difference. Then she chilled me to the bone by saying quietly, usually, when I spend the night over there, he only lies on top of me.
Ashley's allegation that fall, just a couple of months before she was abducted, would not result in formal charges against Ward Weaver.
But at some point when Ashley now disappears and somebody's looking around, you'd think somebody would have brought up, or there would have been some record of this allegation she made against him, and he would have moved to the top of the list of suspects.
On March 8th, 2 months after Ashley went missing, Miranda Gaddis's mother, Michelle, would call 911, saying that she lived in the same apartment complex as Ashley Pond, and now her 13-year-old daughter was missing. Michelle would tell police that she left for work that morning at 7:30 a.m., that she believed that Miranda had left for the bus stop at 8 that morning. But alarm bells went off when she got a call from Miranda's older sister at around 1:20 that afternoon saying that Miranda wasn't at school. Michelle calls the school and finds out that her daughter had been marked absent. That Miranda, like Ashley, appeared to have vanished without a trace on her way to the bus stop. Here's more of Miranda's interview with that reporter back in January when police were conducting that roadblock near the bus stop, where now both Ashley and Amanda lived and had disappeared from.
We were close like off and on, but not all the time.
And did you ever talk about problems at home?
Yeah, I've known her for since 3rd or 2nd grade.
What do you think happened that morning? Or what actually happened that morning?
Wednesday?
Yeah, that one morning which basically was she here? Or?
I have no what happened.
I don't
know what happened. I just know that she disappeared, ran away, or got kidnapped or something.
Did you talk about running away? Some people said that she met her.
Yeah, she told my little sister that the week before she did it, she told her that she was going to run away. But she's been gone for so long. It seems like she got kidnapped or something.
Investigators believe that Miranda's disappearance wasn't a coincidence. The scenarios of the two missing girls were eerily similar. That the morning of the 8th, Miranda heads out for the bus stop in front of Ward Weaver's house. It was clear that 39-year-old Ward Weaver was a connecting point. His 13-year-old daughter was a friend to both Ashley and Miranda. All three were on the same dance team at school, and Ashley and Miranda were over at the Weaver home a lot for playdates. 2 weeks before Miranda went missing, Ward Weaver's daughter had her 13th birthday, and she'd invited Miranda and some other girls. Apparently that day, Ward Weaver had gotten angry when he found out that Miranda had told another girl not to spend the night, warning her that Weaver had molested Ashley, and if she stayed the night, it could happen to her too. And, like Ashley, Miranda would often go into the Weaver's home and wait with his daughter for the bus. But Weaver's daughter would often stay at her mother's house, and the night before Miranda disappeared was one of those nights, so she wasn't home the morning of March 8th. Had Miranda gone to the Weaver's house to wait for the bus, not realizing that her friend wasn't home, that it would be just her and Ward Weaver? 3 days after Miranda went missing, Ward Weaver began a project in his backyard. He asks his son to help him dig a hole in his yard, and then the two of them do prep work for a concrete slab that Weaver says will be the foundation for a hot tub that he wants to install. Before the concrete was poured, Weaver would tell his son he wouldn't need his help anymore, that he's going to finish it alone. That concrete slab was concerning to investigators because they knew that in 1982, Ward Weaver's father, who was a long-haul trucker, had seen a young couple pulled over on the side of the road with a flat tire. He pulls over to help them. And of course, they're overjoyed until the unthinkable happens. The man they believe was a Good Samaritan would beat to death the woman's fiancé with a club. He then kidnaps, rapes, and murders her, then buries her in his backyard under a tomb of concrete. Ward Weaver's father would be convicted of the murders and was on death row. Obviously, the FBI was very suspicious of the timing of his DIY project. Ashley's disappearance had garnered a lot of local media attention, but when another young girl goes missing, under the exact set of circumstances, the story blew up. It became a national story. The girls' mothers would do interviews, law enforcement would conduct a press conference announcing a $50,000 reward. Thousands of tips would come in, but no arrests would be made, and the investigation revealed a sad commonality between both Ashley and Miranda, that they'd both been sexually abused, Ashley by her father and Miranda by her mother's boyfriend. Multiple people in the girls' circles would be asked to take a polygraph test, including Ward Weaver, who would fail that test. A polygraph is a tool for law enforcement, but without a confession, and Ward Weaver was adamant that he had nothing to do with the girls' disappearances, and without any physical evidence tying him to their abductions, he would remain a person of interest, along with many others.
Okay, people. So we're going to have a promo code for you here in a second. But look, summer's over. Okay, so that means the kids are back in school. And so if you're anything like me, you've got a million activities going on. You've got sports, you've got after school studying, you've got driving, you got picking up, you got a ton of stuff. So what do you want to do to save time? What I love doing to save time is I use America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh. What does it cut out? Grocery shopping. It's a huge time saver for me.
And you know what I love about it is that it's like you don't have to make 50 different meals. I don't know if you run across that in your family where I've got picky eaters, then I've got really adventurous eaters. So having HelloFresh is a great way to appeal to everyone. And you can pick those meals ahead of time so nobody feels left out. And I actually learned a thing or two about how to cook from HelloFresh, because I don't know about you, but I've never tried the combination of hoisin sauce and Thai chili sauce together.
Amateur. Okay, I could teach them a thing or two about cooking. That's how much I know about cooking. Okay, I'm the chef.
Well, anyway.
I'm the chef in the house. Okay, no, I'm kidding.
Look out! Brandon's coming in hot.
The other great thing about it to save time is that the average prep time, every meal that I've cooked from HelloFresh, average prep time is like 20 minutes. Everything's pre-portioned. You follow the instructions, and what's even better about it, and I've said this, HelloFresh sponsors another show that I do, is I cook with my nephew who lives across the street, who's like 11 or 12 years old. He loves cooking. And so it's a great way. Connections always happen in the kitchen anyway, right? Yeah. Everybody at parties, everyone winds up in the kitchen and hanging out. And so in my family, same way. And so I just love being in the kitchen with my nephew. We cook, we have a great time. I let him do the sauteing and stuff. Now he's moved up to knife work, which is great because there's always some, even though everything's pre-portioned and the prep time is really low, there's always a couple of things to do so you really feel like you're cooking. It's great. And then clean up, forget about it, super easy, couple dishes. It's awesome. So for time saving, in the summer with HelloFresh, it's great because of the community and the meals are delicious. Now that the kids are back in school and I need to save time, I realize what a benefit it is to not have to run out to the supermarket, to not have to measure out all of the ingredients. It's a real time saver, and the food's delicious. Last week we did the pork chops with the balsamic glaze. Forget about it.
Mind blown.
Oh, chef's kiss.
And you know what? Even though you're the cook of the house, which I am too, well, most of the time, I notice that they want to see what's going on with these boxes. Like it brings like an excitement and an energy that they're like, okay, what do we got going on here?
Yeah, and the ice packs.
See that we're both HelloFresh fans, right?
Absolutely. And so listen, not only is the food delicious and it saves you time, for a limited time, kids eat free. Go to HelloFresh.com/MischiefKids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while your subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/MischiefKids.
America's #1 meal kit.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
At this time, FBI profilers were consulted from the Behavioral Science Unit. According to their analysis, they believed that the same man was responsible for both kidnappings and that this suspect would have significant lifestyle changes happening, which included their belief that he would have recently sold his car and that he'd be highly interested in the investigation. Acting on a tip, a reporter from the Portland Tribune would go speak to Ward Weaver on June 30th, 2002, about the girl's disappearance. The reporter was shocked when Weaver openly connected himself to the case. He would say that he had nothing to do with the girl's disappearances, but he would share that he had become a suspect because Ashley had accused him of sexually molesting her several months before her disappearance, and that Miranda would often come to his house to visit with his daughter. On July 3rd, he would grant an interview with K2 News, and right off the bat, he portrays himself as a victim.
They want to put me on their list of suspects, fine. You know, I live right here in the middle of all this mess.
Without being prompted, he again puts himself at the center of the investigation, saying that he was the prime suspect, but he was completely innocent, and that he'd only failed the polygraph because the test hadn't been properly administered, and that because of the way he was being treated, he wasn't going to cooperate with law enforcement any longer.
Simple fact is, they come back around and want more help from me, I'm done.
When asked where he was the morning the girls went missing, he would admit that he was at home.
No, and during that time, no, I wasn't at work, I was here. Getting up at 8, you know, my daughter would wake me up at 8, I'd watch her catch the bus, get in the shower, and up, you know, it's a 12-minute drive from Clackamas, so it didn't, from here to Clackamas, if I don't hit any traffic down here at this light. So, no, I was here, but time frame doesn't make anything feasible.
When asked about Ashley's allegations that he had sexually molested her, he portrays himself as a fatherly figure to a troubled girl.
Ashley has this habit, if she gets in trouble by someone, she'll make accusations against that person. And the first time that I actually had to come down on her about her mouth, she did just that. You know, she made accusations that I had molested her.
And he shares his thoughts about where Ashley and Miranda might be.
I know Ashley ran away, you know, and the fact that the FBI are throwing both of these cases, you know, into someone took them both, it's like, okay, fine, you know, I don't see it that way, and I would really not like to think that someone took Miranda, either girl actually, but I know, you know, well, I don't have anything to do with what's going on, but my gut instinct is Ashley's off somewhere where she would rather be than home.
The reporter, Ann Song, would wrap up the interview by doing a walk through the house where Ward Weaver discusses the massive sleepover parties his daughter would have.
Depending on how many girls were here, like I said, I've had some huge parties. You could not walk anywhere in my front room without stepping on a body.
The tour of his home ends outside on the freshly poured concrete slab, where he explains the personal responsibility he feels for his daughter's friends when they sleep over.
I kept tabs on them when they were here, you know, just because, you know, I'm a parent and responsible because they're here.
A week after this local interview, Ward Weaver would go on Good Morning America and trash Ashley's mother on national television.
She doesn't care about Ashley, and with the little problems that girl has, and a mother that doesn't care, she's better off hiding out wherever she's just, found a place to live.
A few days after Ward Weaver's appearance on national TV, law enforcement would descend on the apartment complex where the girls lived with their mothers. They would serve a search warrant on a unit that was above Ashley Pond's residence. 2 young men lived in the apartment. Both had taken polygraph tests and failed. However, no arrests would be made after the search of the apartment in connection to the girls' disappearance. That July, Ward Weaver would sell his 1977 Camaro. The new buyer would find some of the vehicle's carpeting had been ripped out and was stuffed inside the trunk. During this time, Weaver wouldn't shy away from the spotlight. In early August, he would speak to local reporters again, but this time he made it clear he was going to leave the state because of the way that he was being treated over the girls' disappearance.
I'm going to go check, a couple places out and see what's got the best chances for jobs, and I'm out of here. I'd like to know where both of them are. I'd like to see Miranda come home. Ashley, I'd like to know where she's at, but honestly, I'd leave her there.
On August 13th, everything would change with one shocking 911 call. A young man, Francis Weaver, tells a 911 dispatcher that his father, Ward Weaver, had just raped his 19-year-old girlfriend in their home. He then goes on to say that his father, just a few days earlier, had admitted to him that he'd killed Ashley and Miranda. Ward Weaver would be arrested that day and charged with raping his son's girlfriend in his daughter's bedroom. The young woman had barely escaped. Fleeing the home on foot, she was picked up by a passing car who dropped her off at the nearest store where she called 911.
Ward Weaver was taken into the Oregon City Police Department just about 15 minutes ago.
We have exclusive pictures from Jet Ranger 2 of Weaver being taken into custody by Oregon State Police, assisted by Clackamas County Sheriff's deputies.
Francis Weaver would tell investigators that he believed Ashley and Miranda were buried in the backyard. With Ward Weaver in police custody, there was a lot of attention on his home, which was a rental. When the property owner goes to place an eviction notice on the door, he also goes into the shed on the property, where he sees fly strips hanging from the ceiling, covered with insects. On August 23rd, the FBI descends upon the small home. Authorities erect a chain-link fence around the property. Over the next few days, that barrier would become a makeshift memorial for the girls, as the media, family, and community members wait and watch, forever touched by the wretchedness of this 8-month-long investigation. Anxious for answers, still praying that the girls would be found alive. But the energy was grim. 8 months after Ashley had vanished, and 6 months since Miranda, both disappearing without a trace. Statistically, after so many months, many surmise that this would most likely be a recovery mission as opposed to a rescue, if the girls were even there at all. The next morning, on August 24th, tents would go up around the concrete slab and on the shed. At some point, the gates would be parted, and a vehicle from the medical examiner's office pulls into the driveway of the residence.
Late in the afternoon, investigators processing the crime scene have discovered what appears to be human remains in the back outbuilding behind the house.
At about 4:15 this afternoon, the Oregon State Medical Examiner has positively identified the remains discovered yesterday as the body of Miranda Gaddis.
Miranda was found in a cardboard box wrapped in plastic on the floor of the shed. The following day, they would recover another set of human remains.
Late this afternoon, crime scene investigators processing the crime scene behind the house have recovered a second set of human remains. These remains were in the ground, in a barrel underneath the area where the concrete slab was.
Those remains would later be identified as Ashley Pond. In October, Ward Weaver would be indicted for the aggravated murders of Ashley Pond and Miranda Gaddis. He was also charged with the 2001 sexual molestation of Ashley Pond. Prosecutors were seeking the death penalty. Ward's attorneys would try to get the trial moved to a different county, but the judge would refuse. Not long after, Ward Weaver would make a deal to spare his life. In September of 2004, he would be sentenced to 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. But he never shared the details of the murders. Ken has some thoughts based on his expertise in behavioral analysis.
So what you're looking for in a lot of these cases in articles that I wrote about child molesters who abduct, I talk about what maybe one of the kind of people you're looking for is somebody who had failed attempts at children, who tried to groom and seduce a child that just didn't work out. And so now he doesn't want to go through all that trouble. He doesn't have the time and effort to go through that. So he just physically overpowers them and abducts them.
And you're right. I think you probably are spot on, because in the Ashley Pond, he did try to rape her at his home. So maybe he had tried to seduce her and it just didn't work out. And so then he had to...
That's a variation of what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So he tried to do that. When he did it, he didn't succeed, and she told somebody about it. So now he realizes that technique is not working. I didn't pull that off successfully. So I almost got caught. And why he wasn't caught, I don't know. Why he didn't get arrested and prosecuted, I don't really know. I'll leave that up to somebody else to look into. But he didn't get away with it. Well, he didn't succeed in having sex with her, as far as I know. But again, so now he sees her another time, and then now he has an alternative plan. And this time, he knows what he's going to do because he's going to take total control over her. So he does it. And now he has sex with her, but in order to do it, he had to physically abduct her and physically overpower her. Now what the heck am I going to do? She's been gone. She didn't go to school. She missed the bus. When she comes home and she reports this to her parents and they call the police, I'm in big-time trouble. So I'm not saying I know this for a fact, but at that point maybe when he decided he's going to have to kill her, and then how am I going to dispose of her body?
And remember that interview where Ward Weaver gives the reporter a tour of his home? And they end that interview outside on the concrete slab where he says this.
I kept tabs on them when they were here, just because, I'm a parent and responsible because they're here.
It was under that slab of concrete that Weaver had buried Ashley Pond. Apparently he invited a news reporter to his place to do an interview. Right. I mean, we talk about his need-based desires to do this, and, he's got to get rid of the evidence. But this seems like complete narcissism to invite a reporter into your home standing, like he's got to be getting off on this in some way, on the concrete slab where one of his victims is buried.
Now, his risk was minimal because he's got the child buried under the concrete. So what's the reporter going to do? Get out a pickaxe? Now, the most famous story that we have of this is another guy a little bit further south from you, was Ed Kemper. Ed Kemper was the 6'9" serial killer from down there, and he had killed one of these college co-eds, and I think he had his body in the trunk, and he gets stopped by a police officer because he has one of his tail light was out or something like that. He gets stopped by the police officer who's talking to him, and he says, "Oh, I'm really sorry, I didn't realize that." "Oh, while you're here, officer, I wonder if you could give my car a complete inspection just to see if I have any other violations." And you say, well, why would somebody do that? You'd be sitting there and get nervous. And that's what we were talking about earlier when we began this, the personal thing about the polygraph. Some people get very nervous, but some of these criminals are so good and have done this so many times and so cold-blooded about it, they don't get nervous the same way other people get it. And sometimes it's the thrill of it. It's the idea that some of these people lie. Why do they lie? Just for the hell of it, just to see if you can get away with it. A lot of these guys just get cocky. And then maybe he figures, well, if they come and they search the house, they find the body, I'm finished anyway. So it's like a thrill of the idea that you're there. But what they're counting on is that this person they know, that particularly a reporter, is not going to conduct a thorough search of the house.
In 2016, Ward Weaver's son, Francis Weaver, the young man who had made that 911 call saying that his father had raped his girlfriend and then shared with the dispatcher that he'd also confessed to him that he'd raped and murdered Ashley and Miranda, Francis Weaver would receive a life sentence for killing a man in 2014. That's 3 generations of Weavers in prison for murder. Even though Francis was not Ward Weaver's biological son, he raised him as such.
The generational thing. That most people, when they talk about, certain kinds of behavior patterns, criminal behavior, they always get in this debate of what they call nature versus nurture. How much of this comes from your environment, your nurturing, what kind of parents were you raised by, and so on and so forth, and how much of this comes from something you inherited genetically from your biological parents. And you hear all these different stories that suggest one or the other is dominant. But the interesting thing about these three guys, these weavers, whatever they are, I get them confused because I guess the oldest one is called Junior and the middle one is called the third and so on. But anyway, you got the three weavers. But the interesting thing about it is, from reading between the lines, it appears that if we look primarily at nurture, what kind of relationship, what kind of thing was modeled. So we know that, I guess, his father was his biological father and he inherited some of those genes, but it appears that his biological father left early on and he was raised predominantly by a stepfather. So you say, well, okay, maybe he inherited those genes and they were just in him, and that's why he started to do all these things, and maybe he heard the stories about his father. So maybe in this case you could say, well, he became a murderer just because his father was a murderer, and he inherited those genes, so it's nature. He just inherited those genes. But now you look at his son, the third generation, and apparently from what I read, that son is not his biological son.
A special thanks to K2 News and the reporting of Anna Song, which was a huge help in the research of this episode. Up next, stick around for our Criminal Mischief bonus episode. Here, my co-host Brandon Morgan and I discuss the case in more detail. And if you enjoy the show, please take a minute to rate and review Criminal Mischief with Carolyn and Brandon on Apple Podcasts. And tell a friend. And as always, thanks for listening. From Cloud 10, Criminal Mischief is a pie-in-the-sky production, recorded in the beautiful Pacific Northwest. We're produced by Brandon Morgan and myself. Music by Soundstripe. I'm Carolyn Osorio, your writer and host.